What's up, you phonies? How's it going? Welcome to another video. This video is a behind the scenes of my new short film Sour Trade. We shot this film several months ago and all in one day. Yes, we shot an entire action film in one day and it is very challenging. Why it's challenging, I'm gonna tell you right now. A little about the backstory to this film. This film was produced by Brady Hepner. He is an actor known from the movie The Black Phone, where Daniel Locicero was stunt coordinating, and Daniel, he's a friend of mine, and Brady, who was a star in The Black Phone and had a few action sequences, he really liked to do some action. So he approached Daniel and said, hey, can we make an action film? And it's Daniel's specialty to direct those, and he approached me because it's my specialty to shoot those, so we made this happen. So Brady came out to LA and we shot this action film in one day. In total, we had 4 stunt actors on this film. We had Aramis Merlin, we had Stanislav Tabirta, Alex Stasko, and Alan. In addition, I also did personally one little fight scene, which was fun. I always wanted to do one in one of those films, so I got to do one too. But in order to make this look like a bigger production and having more people involved, a nice little trick is, if the script allows it, just have the same stunt people wearing masks in other scenes, so you have double the people for half the price. And for makeup, we had Aida. She did an excellent job making those wounds and she was very efficient and fast. That was incredible. And in total, we were shooting at 3 locations, 1 parking lot where we rehearsed the in-van fight scenes. Yes, we were shooting in a driving van, an entire action scene, but not the entire thing was while we were driving. Only the angles where we actually saw the street were in an actual driving van. All the rest we were shooting while we were parked for safety reasons and location reasons. Now for the scenes where the van was actually driving, it was very exciting because for some shots the camera was inside the van, but for other scenes I had to chase the van as fast as I could, keeping the camera as steady as I could on my gimbal, mixed in with the shots where the van was actually parked, angled in a way where you don't see that the van is driving, and adding a little fake camera movement so it looks like the van is driving. So that was very challenging, but a lot of fun. And then we had 2 faults out of a driving van, and it was actual driving with actual stunt performers, and this stuff is always scary. If you make one little mistake, if the driver makes a mistake, if the stunt performer makes a mistake, if something happens, someone could get seriously injured. It didn't happen on this set, which was great, but the most exciting thing was that Brady Hepner wanted to do his own stunt. He wanted to fall out of a driving van with tied hands, and everything went well. Daniel Locicero practiced the stunt so many times in a safe way until it was time to do the jump. And as I said, we had 2 faults out of the driving van. We had Alan and Brady. Alan was the first one, and we incorporated in the script that he's going to take off his mask before he jumps, just so we can accommodate the performer a little, so he can use this shot for his reel, so we can see his face that it was him. Otherwise anybody could use this stunt for his reel. So we incorporated that Brady and Alan were fighting on the ground, and he took off his mask, and after that he kicks him out of the van. He had to do this stunt twice because on the first one he jumped a little too early and the cameras were not positioned right, so we missed the stunt, which is a shame. We shot both stunts with 3 cameras. Inside the car, Daniel was hiding inside the vehicle, inside the driving van, holding one camera close to the wall so the other 2 cameras wouldn't capture him. Then there was one stationary camera on a tripod. That was the safe one, operated by Aramis. Yes, Aramis was acting in this film and also was helping me with second camera behind the scenes. And the 3rd shot was me chasing the van with the gimbal, which was probably the unsafest shot, but it was important that it's gonna get done, and that's why I did this shot. And with all 3 cameras together, that's what the stunts look like. So this scene with the rehearsal, with makeup and all of that took around 2/3 of the day. So we had 1/3 time to make the last scene happen. The problem is, those people, they have energy. They can shoot for 12, 16 hours, no problem. But the problem is daylight. We're losing daylight, and most of this film was shot on daylight. We didn't have many additional lighting because there was just no time for it. And I'm not saying this production was cheap, but it was still on a budget. So we didn't have the time and money to have more gaffers and light people to help us out to make this image look perfect. But we did the best we could on the time frame we had. Then we moved on to the next location, which is a mechanic, a very familiar mechanic because we shot several scenes there already. And fun fact, when I crashed my car last year, that's the mechanic which fixed my car. So I highly recommend it. I'm gonna put their website in the description because they're good people. So the next scene at the mechanic starts with the truck driving in with all of the bad guys and looking for Brady's character. We shot it in separate angles, so we don't really know how many people were in this truck, just to be flexible on how many fight scenes we have, because most of them, they were rehearsed, well, most of them were planned, but we're also very flexible because you know how a mechanic is, it doesn't look the same every time you are there. So we had to work around the location and see where and how can we add a few action moments, like shootouts or hand-to-hand combat. So we start the scene with Brady hiding somewhere. He still has his tied hands and he tries to get the rope off. And then we have Stan. So Stan is getting in there with his assault rifle looking for Brady because he has the idea that he's somewhere there. Brady is hiding around the corner, and then out of nowhere he used this rope to strangle Stan, which was very cool. And the dangerous part, the most dangerous part is, of course, you don't want to strangle the actual actor, so that has to be well performed and choreographed because you don't want to pull for real, you know. Most of this comes from the person who's been getting strangled. He's doing really the action, and the guy who's strangling is actually the passive one. That's a little tip for stunt directing. Now, after he took him out, he takes his AR, so he has the next weapon, and he's taking out the next guy, Alex, who died before, but now he's gonna die again. And then the next bad guy, this bad guy, I'm coming in with my beautiful hair. My hair looked very cool on this day. And he tried to shoot me too. But as I said, I asked Daniel, hey, can I have a little action scene too where I'm fighting? And he was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So you can't really see it in the film, but we were shooting underneath a car, you know, which was like lifted. So I basically was like standing like this. I had to make myself shorter because I'm quite too tall for this scene. And I was there with my little Uzi, you know, and Brady was sneaking up on me with a hammer. And fun fact, the hammer in the close-up he was picking up was a real hammer, okay? But then when he actually attacked me and, you know, we had some contact on my knee and on my face, you don't want to use a real hammer because someone could get seriously injured. So please don't do that. There are stores, or go online, where you can get props which are rubber but they look real. And please, when you do action scenes like that, use those. Invest that money in that because you don't want to use real props. If it's guns or hammers or crowbars, anything, use rubber. So I tried to shoot him. We have a few blams, and then he hits my knee, hits my face. I go against the tire of the car and fall to the ground. I'm out. And now he's using my gun to shoot the next people. And then we have the final showdown with the boss, Aramis Merlin against Brady Hepner. They're shooting at each other from a fair distance, and we see muzzle flares and things explode in the background until they're out, and then it comes to the showdown, hand-to-hand combat, well choreographed, but you can see that we were losing light. It was a matter of 30 minutes, 45 minutes we had to finish this film. Otherwise we would have needed to wrap up, come back on the next day and shoot it again. But every time you do that, all the expenses go up because you need to hire a new crew. It's another $2,000, $3,000, cameras, the 2 stunt people. So the price is going up real quick if you just wrap up and shoot on the next day. So for budget and time reasons, we had to finish it. But Daniel had everything well choreographed and everything was pretty much rehearsed. We added a few things and we also removed a few things. The difficult part really was that because we had to work so quick, all the gear, everything in the background, all the mats we had was always somewhere in the background. So we had a few people trying to move and hide things, but sometimes you still see that there's a few things in the background which were not supposed to be there, but that's how it is sometimes. So that's for the shooting part, and everybody did such a great job, very professional, very fast, and everything looked so good. It feels so good shooting that stuff where you know everybody knows what they're doing, and the director trusts me that I know what I'm doing. It's just a magical collaboration where just everything fits. It's beautiful. That's a great part, being on set. I've been on sets where it's like the opposite. Everybody hates each other. Nobody wants to be there really, but that is quite the opposite. That's why me personally, I love independent filmmaking so much more than like studio filmmaking, where it's like it's just their job, you know. But that was great times. And then everything had to go in post-production. Daniel Locicero, who has a lot of experience with action and stunts, like for decades, he edited this film on his own. Here and there he had to ask me technical questions about what camera did you use, what frame rates were you using, what color profile, what's the best LUT to color grade. So with all that I helped him, but other than that he did the real edit. So props to him. And then it was time for visual effects, and of course I did the visual effects, and mostly it was very straightforward. Like mostly we just needed muzzle flares. Let's look at it. Like we had scenes like this is in the van and he's shooting at him, he's lifting his arms up, so we have a few muzzle flares out of frame, and really I only have 3 layers for those muzzle flares. I have one for the shell flying out of the gun. Yes, I do make the effort, even you barely see it, I always have one flying out of the gun. And the other layer is a big muzzle flare glow over the entire screen, because it gives you the idea the scene was hazy, so it looks a little more three-dimensional. And then I have the actual muzzle flare. And on this shot it's very blurry because the focus in this scene, it's not on the gun. I think the focus is like on this bad guy's face. So the muzzle flare is a little out of focus. That's why I blur it. And for that, I always use the Gaussian blur on this one, 10%. And of course, hue and saturation. Adjust the colors a little because I was editing those VFX on S-Log. And if I didn't use this effect, it would be just way too colored. So I always decrease the saturation on those shots. And in that case, I have 3 of those shots, 3 different muzzle flares. One is more to the front, this one is more up. And again, I was using 3 different effects for that. I was using the actual muzzle flare, then the glow on everything, and the shell flying out of the gun. And another one here. And the tricky one in the end is he's getting shot in the end. So I have the muzzle flare coming behind Brady. I don't see the gun, so I just have to assume where it's more or less going to come from. I also can dictate it a little. I can make the decision where the shot is actually going to, just to make the shot look better or make it make sense, or just to make it make easier for me in the edit. So in that case, I decided I want the shot to go straight in his face because I wanted to be blood behind this guy's head, because I didn't want blood on this black thing. You would barely see it. So I wanted to be blood up here. So I have one muzzle flare. I had to rotoscope Brady out frame by frame, where actually instead of rotoscoping out, I just made the mask around his face, around his head, because it was just one frame. But here I basically did the same thing. I didn't rotoscope him out, I just made a mask by hand. So I have one blood splatter coming out of his head and one actually sticking to the wall. And that had to be tracked because the camera is moving. So I have a null object, I tracked those points so the blood is moving like my actual scene. So that's a tricky one. The more easier ones are when there are only gunshots, and I did those the same way. I have one muzzle flare for the flare, one just coming out of the gun, maybe 2. Here the camera is moving. I could have tracked the camera and whatnot, but I just did it manually, that because he's moving to camera right, so all the effects have to go camera left. Quite simple. Now Here I also decided to not rotoscope. This is the counter shot, this is Brady, this is the reverse, and this is the guy he's shooting. And here also I just tracked him frame by frame, because if you use rotoscope, the entire effect composition gets slower, so I just did that manually. So he was shooting twice. I decided that. We have gun shells flying to the right, and of course blood, he's getting shot. And then the reverse shot, I don't think I have any effects here on that. No, I don't think so. And here also, he was falling very hard to the ground. And here you can even see the mat a little. So he was landing on a mat, so he's gonna be safe. So it's just framed right that you don't see the mat, but of course, here and there you can still see it. But it doesn't really matter. Who's gonna stop the movie to be like, is that a mat? Or is it part of the set? Or what is this? Nobody's gonna do that. And if they do, you maybe should find better hobbies. And now this bad guy is appearing. And the first effect we have here is, of course, muzzle flares off the frame, but the gun is pointing to the right, so the shells are going to fly in our direction. So of course I have to add them here. We have 3 gunshots. Also something I decided what is the best spot for them to shoot, and mostly off camera, so it makes the effect easier. So fast, it looks like pa-pa-pum, pa-pa-pum. Yeah, subtle things. That kind of stuff could have been fixed in post just with sound design or whatever, but it always looks better if something has happened visually too. Now the next guy is shooting, coming at Brady. Bam, 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 same thing. We have shells flying out, muzzle flares. So most of those effects in this film were just muzzle flares, and mostly did them the same way. We're using the same assets over and over. So it's a lot of copy pasting and adjusting when you have a film like that. Now we have an over shoulder shooting at him. He's getting shot, and I decided, you know what, he's getting shot in the head. So blam. And you see a lot of movement in this shot, so it's a lot of blurry, motion blur, but the camera's also moving a lot. So tracking this, impossible. So it's just a matter of guessing, okay, where is the camera going, and just hoping that it looks real. Then we have the last shootout with Aramis Merlin. He's shooting off camera. Since this shot is a little longer, I needed the smoke to be in the shot, and I also made it bigger. I animated the size, so it looks like, because the camera is pushing towards him, he's going back, the gunshot, so the smoke would blam into the camera, you know. So that's what I tried to simulate that. Here I added like a fake zoom in just to adjust the framing a little so it looks better. And of course shells everywhere. And then I have this whole back and forth of them shooting. And once he's shooting, I also added like a little reflection in the car he's using for cover. I did that sometimes, not always, but here and there. And of course shells flying out. Then it was just this back and forth, and it was a lot of copy pasting. Here effects like nobody's gonna see, but it's nice to have, like the glass shatters in the background in the back car, so he hits the car instead of him. So I have 3 gunshots in the back. Stuff like, again, nobody sees that, but I still like to make those little details sometimes, because I have this shot in there anyways, so might as well just adding a few things. So I tracked, I think, the mirror and this, so I have the tracking in the background. So he's shooting the car 3 times, I believe. No, just 2 in the window. And now he's going in cover. Here, I had to blur this license plate because it's my car. I didn't want my license plate to be in there, so because you don't know who's gonna see this movie, what kind of freaks are gonna be stalking me, so I just blurred this license plate. And that's it for that one. And again, lots of back and forth. I had some over shoulder angles, and here also I needed to mask this hand out so the muzzle flares could be behind the gunshots, which is important. If it was just on top of it, it wouldn't look good. And here also, he hit the wall once here. I don't think anybody saw this, but yeah, he did. Just a quick little detail. Here it's always great to add VFX like that in the foreground, like something exploded inside the camera, like not inside the camera, but very close to the camera. It always looks good. Gives you more depth in the shots. Here another one. That one doesn't make any sense at all, but it just happened. And yeah, after this entire back and forth, it's going to be out eventually. And now we have this shot. This one is tricky. We wanted this matrix bullet time effect where the camera zooms around our subjects. And for that, the footage had to be, first of all, stabilized. Otherwise it would be like all shaky. And then after it's stabilized, you can actually speed it up like a speed ramp. Add fake motion blur because we pretend the camera is moving very fast, but actually I was just walking around it very slowly because we wanted to flip to the other side. That's why we did that, because that's basically the great finale where Brady is about to win his fight. So we wanted to have it a little more dramatic and extra. Here a little effect where he gets stabbed, and when he's pulling out the knife, we wanted to add a little more blood extra just to sell the effect better. And here also I tracked this background here because the camera obviously is moving. I couldn't track him because otherwise the blood would move like him. So I tracked the background and added this camera movement to the blood coming out of his neck. And one more insert where the knife falls. The effect was faster to make than to shoot it because we dropped this knife a couple of times and we always wanted it to be in the right focus, but it never worked out. And again, we were fighting against daytime, so eventually we decided, you know what, I'm just gonna put the blood which drops in the place where it is in focus. And then also the focus shifts to the knife, so I just added a little focus shift on the blood, from the blood to the knife, and I had an actual camera and in After Effects, and I used the depth of field to simulate that this blood is getting out of focus. Now this effect in the beginning of the film was tricky because I had to add the blood because this guy got shot earlier. The blood had to be on the wall, so I had to add this, and that was basically tracked manually because there's so much movement going on. And here you can see my null object. This is where my move information is in. So I tracked one of those points here because those points were in the shot the entire time. And then I added the blood I had before, adjusted the size and color to put in the background. So you can see like those action films doing visual effects on those action scenes can be very tedious because it's basically doing the same thing over and over, copy pasting, adjusting the scale and rotation and movement and the colors. But you can't be lazy with those things because people pick up if it's just copy pasting. So you always have to adjust it and make it look good. And one more scene, we had one scene where Brady was getting kicked into a button which made the gate of our truck open. And this button I did in Blender, and I didn't even make this button myself. I just took one from the internet. Obviously it's a button for like lights and stuff like that. So I moved all this information here when it comes to what it is about. I moved it to the other side of the shot, so you can't really read what this button is actually for. And I tried to track my footage, but it was not possible because most of the shot is out of focus. It's just this, so it's just the button in focus, like the middle of it. So you can see on my bottom layer here, bottom viewport, that I have my camera very close to my object. I have the wall for the shadow catcher and reflections. And we shot it that way that we just put like this blue button as a placeholder there. So I just shot it, I just made the effect that way. I just rendered one frame, not even an animation, just one frame, and then in After Effects I tracked in After Effects. This shot is just a few frames long, so I just tracked it in After Effects and hoped for the best. It's literally 3 frames long, so he's being kicked into the button. So just for one shot I had to rotoscope Brady so he's in front of my button, so on the switch. So it's very quick and dirty. And that's it for the VFX part. So this entire thing was a lot of fun to make, and that is the kind of production I live for because that's just so much fun. Everybody's getting paid, everybody has a great time, and in the end you have a great product. So if you haven't seen the film yet, I'm gonna link it in my end screen. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or ideas, let me know in the comments below, and see you in the next video. Toodaloo.